Hello, I'm meteorologist Jason Nappy talking about the Grinch Storm of 2023. This storm kind of gets lost in what happened here in January. So I want to go back to December, talk about what happened before Christmas. That's why it's called the Grinch Storm. And as a note here, this also happened a couple days before Christmas in 2022. But really the big story here, the power went out for really almost all of Maine. I'll talk about the 400,000 power outages that happened. Let's talk about the storm in more detail here. When I pull the curtain back, because a lot of people have asked me, why was this such a big deal? Why was this one of the worst storms in the history of Maine? And I want to talk about the storm track, very important. Here's December 18th, 2023. Here is the low pressure center. That's in eastern Canada. This storm was an inside runner, so it went inland. It didn't go up the coast. You have the wind coming in, battering the coastline, but the coastline didn't get hit that hard from this storm. It was the first storm of many. It really was about the wind and the rain that moved in. Here's that front, here's the occluded front, here's the warm front. Occluded front, this thing, a fancy word for a cold front, catches up to the warm front. Let's talk about storm track because that's really everything with these storms. Now, an inside runner is not this. This is a nor'easter here. We're used to that. Just had one that kind of went over towards Connecticut and part of Boston a few days ago. This is what that track normally looks like for a nor'easter. An inside runner, or some will call it a sou'easter because the wind is out of the southeast, goes inside or inland, whatever way you want to call it, preference-wise. And that is not off the coast. This one, though, pulls the wind and obviously the tide too inland. And what happened here for the state of Maine is the power just went out. There's the occluded front. Once again, the cold front, which is important, catches up to the warm front, and you get an occluded front. So what happened was nearly all of Maine lost power. 400,000 customers. That's a lot of people. Think about like blizzard of 78, obviously, and that kind of a realm, the October gale, the Halloween gale, those kind of storms. What happened is a low-level jet plus the heavy rainfall brought the wind down to the ground level for hours. So in the atmosphere, we've got much higher wind, a couple thousand feet above in the sky. What happens is a low-level jet, kind of like, think about like an airplane, and the heavy rain pushes that wind down to ground level. And for hours, this wasn't just a 1-hour thing or 20-minute thing like you see like in a severe thunderstorm. This is for hours. So here's the wind map of what actually happened on the 12th and 18th of December. 45 to 60 up here, western mountains, the Longfellows, northern highlands, the North Woods. But really the action for this one, this is widespread, 60 to 70 miles an hour from Bangor down east all the way down the southern coast, 70 to 90 plus here for a portion of the down east coastline. That was where the wind and the low-level jet, the heavy rain pushed all of that wind from high in the sky down to the ground level. So in Bangor, recorded 60 plus mile per hour wind gusts for several hours. That's tropical storm force, near hurricane force for hours. Parts of down east were at hurricane force wind gusts. I just showed you that 70 to 90 plus, 74 is a hurricane, but more than that. I saw more than 90 mile an hour actual recorded off the coast there of Washington County. That's how powerful the low-level jet was. Now, normally, this doesn't happen, because we have a stable inversion at the ground. I've talked about inversions. That's on our YouTube channel. It's on my YouTube channel, Facebook. But what that does, an inversion in the atmosphere, a warm layer when it's cold at the bottom, normally keeps things stable. But normally, there's not enough to keep the high wind aloft. So normally, you've got a lot of that layer, that stable layer in the atmosphere that will keep the high wind up there, But what happened is that inversion got scoured out and then the wind just came ripping through. And the rain was also a big factor with the storm. 5 to 7 inches here, especially in the foothills, the southeast facing slopes. You're seeing the theme here, southeast facing. So you get that uplift, orographic lift. So all the moisture is just wrung out of the atmosphere here, and the upslope favored, southeast facing slopes of the foothills. And with the storm track there up to the northwest, that happened. So the coast, the southern coast didn't get a lot, but 5 to 7 inches of rain, plus the fact there was already a high water table from that once a week stormy pattern we had in December. Then you add on snow at elevation, add heavy rain to that, and the high dew points, which are pretty rare for mid-December, and you've just got a recipe for disaster. Rapid snowmelt, runoff that pushed the rivers over their banks. The ground was frozen, so that helped the runoff even more. So this made just a complete disaster of a situation. It was the worst river flooding recorded since the 1800s. Let that sink in for a minute. The recent rainfall, the frozen ground, the heavy rainfall, it was the worst possible scenario. And then the biggest question I get is, why was it so strong? Well, that storm just had explosive bombogenesis. So the storm rapidly intensified. It dropped millibars, 24 millibars in 24 hours. Upper level energy that went into it, kind of like a nor'easter, but this one went, it's again, inside, okay? It didn't go off the coast. It didn't pull all the energy in the cold air south. It took the warm air and threw it inland. And the origins of this system were in the Gulf of Mexico. It had tropical origins here. No, it was not a warm core system when it got here, but it had tropical origins, and it definitely got here and still had quite a punch. So that's why the Grinch storm is go down in history as one of the worst storms. It'd be debated whether or not it was the worst. Probably not, but it was definitely up there. I thank you for watching. The next one will be coming up soon.